Both China and Bitcoin have been huge news recently as major volatility is clearly present. The Chinese yuan has found itself spiraling downwards. We have also seen Bitcoin fluctuate first unobstructed upward, then rapidly falling right after. What is important to note is that many individuals have been using Bitcoin as a means of escaping the capital controls in China and have been partly responsible for the rise which we have seen. Alternate currencies and assets are in high demand. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we are going to have our focus on Bitcoin, China, and I also want to talk about gold. See, Bitcoin is being used as this capital controls loophole. Some individuals take to the black market. We've seen some of this happening in Venezuela right now, for example. Here in China, they are definitely going ahead and using Bitcoin to some degree. Let's look at this. China's financial services authorities required major executives of the Shanghai-based Bitcoin trading platform to rectify what they call misbehavior in the trading of the virtual currency and to raise awareness of the risks and as the value of Bitcoin's experienced wild fluctuations. And I do believe that this is true. You know, there are risks. When you put your money into anything, even that's your own currency that your country produces or your private central bank produces, you have to figure, look, there's always going to be risk. So you have to keep your savings, if you have any, somewhere, whether that's in your base currency, let's call it, or a foreign currency, or maybe you want to put it in assets or anything else. There's always fluctuations because everything is measured in something else. It's all relative. When you look at this here, the value of each Bitcoin jumped more than 14% on Friday after hitting an all-time high. The currency's value fluctuated by, check this out, more than 30% within the past 2 weeks. Those are major jumps right there. I guess at this point I'll mention this. What I've seen in general, to generalize here, is that when you have something that is generally recognized as a small asset class, you can see a lot of volatility occurring with that. So for example, you know, the stock market as a whole, when you look at trillions of dollars, it's harder to move that than something like Bitcoin. At the same time, however, though, there are less total players. So it sort of plays off against each other that way. A statement by the People's Bank of China Shanghai released said the changes in the virtual currency were abnormal. And basically they have to urge the platform to probe investors' behavior and to rectify misbehavior. So anyway, I would just like to say that what has been going on here, China probably doesn't like this, and they are trying to engage in some sort of, let's call this protections for their own currency. Look at this. China's institutional and individual investors should take a rational approach to investing in the virtual currency such as Bitcoin, the central bank said. Bitcoin prices had showed abnormal fluctuations, okay? And we're basically getting to a lot of the same thing. They refer to it as self-inspection and everything else here. I just wanted to say specifically that China doesn't want to have so much of the outflows occurring. If it happens slowly over time, it may balance itself out. But if it happens all in one big gust of wind, then it's going to topple it over. It's stressed that Bitcoin is not, I know a lot of you will not appreciate this one, is not a currency and cannot be circulated as a real currency in the market. What I would say about Bitcoin is that it's new, there's no doubt, and I don't want to give my opinion, this is not the video for that, but when a private central bank who issues garbage fiat paper currency and then says, look, that other thing over there, that's not a real, well, I mean, what are we getting at here? I mean, what is real in these currencies when you think about it? Is the private central bank fiat currency more real than Bitcoin? You know, if you look at just the two of them, you know, I've got some difference of opinion, let's just say. Chinese volatility explodes. Yuan tumbles the most in 1 year after the biggest two-day rally ever. We are seeing huge changes occurring right now. The sudden surge in two-way volatility that has emerged, a major threat to the global market stability. Yuan fell as much as 1.1% to 6.86 of the dollar. Now, people would say, and you see the haters in the comments all the time, 1.1%, that's nothing. But when you think about it, sure, if Bitcoin moved up 1%, perhaps it's not that much. But you're talking about the major foreign exchanges. 1% on a particular currency is a lot of money being moved in or out. We're not talking about something small here, okay? Remember that. And what is the concern right now is that if it moves past the mark of 7, that is similar to what I've talked about at the Dow, how, you know, once it hits these marks, then it could set off algorithms, either sending it up higher or lower, depending how they're all set. I don't know how the algorithms are set. I just know that they would have a particular number and feel that it would be very important, the Yuan being 7 and the Dow Jones being 20,000. China reserves hover above $3 trillion on government support. There is more in this article here, but essentially what we are looking at here is the government being able to do whatever it needs to, whether that is what we have seen, printing money. We have seen easy money policies by the central banks. We have seen, and that's the interest rates, of course. And then we have seen all of these sort of TARP-type bailouts, public works projects essentially taking place. We also have seen simply fudging the numbers. And one of those examples is what I call, or what I've seen, the intragovernmental debt. And that's what I call a straight up lie. Because if you just steal from the future, if you steal from Social Security that you are intending on giving to other people at some point, and you use that to make up for your shortfalls, it doesn't really do anything to save anybody. China holds the power of the US in their hands because of these reserves. But if it has to make up for the fall in the Yuan, it's going to be in a little bit of a predicament. That's what's happening right now. Let's look at this. Bitcoin's volatility greatly exceeds that of gold and currency. And you can see these spikes, obviously, which have occurred. Looking at this being what you would say about this is that, yes, clearly there are, number one, less players. Number two, there is a significant less percentage. And I'm going to show you that. Just quickly would note here that gold is sort of being tracked down here, basically a steady line throughout. Let's move on to this, where a similar graph essentially showing you the percentage-wise. Right at the very bottom, you're seeing cryptocurrencies. Okay, it's basically zero. Okay, to round it off there. Then you look at something like gold, and you can see, obviously, just for example, in this situation, comparing the two, where it's basically nothing versus 49%. So these things should show you how these markets can be moved and manipulated. It's going to be a lot easier to move cryptocurrencies than it is to move gold. That could mean a significant spike upward in Bitcoin at any moment, or of course it could mean the opposite. And then you take a market like gold, which is large in comparison to Bitcoin, but then compare that to the stock markets. Well, then you're seeing something completely different. You know, gold and silver are nothing close to a bubble, despite what some individuals would like to maintain, because you just simply look at the total financial assets in the world, and it is, you know, a fraction of a percent in the total. So we know that. We know it's not. There's not enough out there. Not enough people talking about it, not enough sales on it, not enough anything. It is right now in practically its infancy on where it could go. Now, it's all dependent on the manipulation. That's what's key in the price of precious metals. There is a lot of paper basically being sold back into the market to keep the price depressed. That's very clear. And again, just to quickly overview here, you're looking at gold fairly stable throughout, and this chart goes back 2013, and you can see the price moves in Bitcoin. As you saw, the run up was very, very dramatic, and it came down in a quite significant fashion, but the rise up has been relatively steady. We've seen the price obviously make some big changes in the recent weeks, but ultimately that price was quite steadily rising over the past little while there. So it's interesting to see where it all goes. Let's keep our eyes on Bitcoin and China, and know that this isn't the last we will see of these. That's for sure. There will be big news, at least for the near future here. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see Ben Bernanke and Janet Yellen, their little hybrid, then you'll have to give me a thumbs down. Let me know. And last but not least, if you found this video informative, I know you will find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. I've taken this complex subject of the financial industry and I've made it very simple by using diagrams that I've created as well as charts that basically break it all down, make it simple. You can look through the book. If you go over to Amazon, they have a look inside feature that allows you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Take care.